Chapter 2. The Smile. Jacob was a beautiful little boy, with wild, curly black hair and pale skin. Upon meeting him, I saw a frail, 2-year-old who resembled a little rag doll. He was unable to move or open his eyes. He could not cry, swallow, or even smile any longer. When Jacob lost his smile, his parents knew his soul was gone. He had such a beautiful smile, and then, overnight, the disease invaded his facial nerve, leaving his facial and respiratory muscles paralyzed. His mother cried as she recounted that terrible day. Jacob had to be put on a life support after that. She said that, after being born, he developed normally for the first year. Just before his second birthday, he exhibited signs of muscle wasting and began to quickly regress and degenerate. His illness reduced his muscles to jelly, leaving him in a flaccid state, unable to express his pain. It was heart-wrenching and heartwarming to watch this family try to make its little boy's last days peaceful and filled with love. His mother rocked him, sang to him, and massaged his little body. She kissed his forehead sweetly every time she entered and left the room. His older brother, Michael, who was only 4 years old and full of energy and life, did not seem to understand why Jacob slept all the time and couldn't play with him. He sat for hours on the bed next to Jacob reading him books, or at least that is what he called it. They were mostly picture books, but Michael told excellent stories about the pictures, and he never tired of talking to Jacob as he played on the floor next to the bed. After spending more than 4 months at the hospital on life support, Jacob's parents could no longer watch him lie there and slowly decline. The doctors assured them that he had no possible chance of recovery and repeatedly recommended him to hospice. After several opinions from multiple pediatric neurologists and geneticists gave no hope of recovery, Jacob's parents finally consented to comfort care. He was discharged to home hospice care, as the family wanted him to be surrounded by all his stuffed animals and the comfort of home. The next few weeks were quite difficult for Jacob's mother, father, and brother. With the daily education and support from the pediatric hospice nurse, aide, and chaplain, the family was able to cope. During one of my visits to their home, Jacob's mother asked me if I believed in heaven. I replied, "Yes." "Why do you ask, Sarah?" "Well, I was contemplating our traditional Jewish belief that souls go to a place called Sheol, a dwelling place of all deceased where they wait for their Messiah to resurrect them. There are many Jews nowadays who have varying beliefs, including Messianic Jews, who hold the Christian heavenly principle. I love my religion, but I want him to go to heaven, so he can run and play and do those things he was not able to do here on earth. He deserves that. He's just an innocent little baby." I spoke with the rabbi, and he said that I can pray for that. "What do you think, Dr. Lerma? I understand your pain and desires for your little one, and I agree with your rabbi that prayer is powerful." I remembered what Matthew had told me about prayer and about sharing his story, so I told Sarah about Matthew and his mother, and their spiritual experiences. Amazingly, she was comforted and touched by the stories of hope, and began praying to God for a sign to let her know that her little Jacob would be with him and the angels. The next day, I shared more of Matthew's story with Michael, Sr., Sarah, and little Michael, and spoke further of Rafi, Gabby, and the dolphins, and they all seemed to be engulfed with peace and comfort. At that moment I also felt a wonderful sense of tranquility and was grateful to the little boy with the crooked smile. Within minutes of finishing the tale, Jacob opened his eyes, smiled really big, and raised his arms as if he was reaching for someone above him. He was stunned. It was impossible for him to rally that kind of muscle strength. He smiled, his arms ascended, and then he died. His mother was sitting on the bed, and she was too shocked to cry or say anything at all. Michael had been playing on the floor and, when Jacob died, he stood up and walked towards the bed next to his mother. As he was about to sit next to his mother, he abruptly stopped, and went around and sat on the other side. Curious, Sarah asked him why he moved to the other side of the bed. Michael quickly replied, "There is an angel sitting next to you, so I couldn't sit there." "Don't you see him, Mom?" She looked flabbergasted, but she felt comforted by her little son. Michael suddenly touched his brother's body and ran out the door crying. Before we could go to him, he turned around and calmly walked back with tears still on his face. He walked up to his little brother and lifted his arm. His morn asked what he was doing. He said, "They are right." "Who's right, sweetie?" his mother asked. He answered, "The angels. They're in the hall with Jacob, and they told me his body is just a shell. They told me to come and see for myself. They are right." He lifted the Jacob's arm again and let it drop. "It's just a shell. Jacob is with the angels." Michael said Jacob was smiling, laughing, and doing somersaults in the hallway. Sarah and Michael looked at me, with both questions and hope in their eyes. I said, "You both prayed for a sign and you were given more than one." Jacob smiling and lifting his atrophied arms was alone miraculous. Also, 4-year-old children have no concept of death, and your 4-year-old is telling you what the angels have revealed to him. I think that's a big sign. Sarah and Michael started to cry, thanked me, and hugged little Michael. It was such a beautiful and poignant moment. Doctor's notes later, Sarah recounted the story to her rabbi, and he had her repeat it to the congregation. Finally, that gave her a sense of acceptance and closure, and a realization that her son was truly with the angels, not sleeping and waiting. She was so happy with that reassurance. Little Michael continued to tell stories of Jacob coming to play with him for the next year or so, and he said the angels would fly him in and out. That was further encouragement for their mother, which allowed her to demonstrate a deeper love to Michael.